Hello there. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Right now, as you settle in, something remarkable is happening all around the world. In the depths of the ocean, dolphins are calling each other by name. In distant forests, chimpanzees are teaching their young how to use tools. On quiet savannas, elephants are mourning their lost companions with gestures of tenderness and grief. The minds of animals are not empty. They are full of thought, feeling, and wonder in ways we are only beginning to understand. For centuries, people believed that thinking and feeling were uniquely human, but science has begun to reveal something far more astonishing. Across every corner of the planet, from oceans to forests, other creatures are thinking too. They plan, solve problems, and remember complex ideas. They show signs of empathy, cooperation, and creativity. Tonight, we journey into the quiet world of animal minds. We will explore over 100 soothing facts about the inner lives of creatures great and small, from the problem-solving skills of crows to the emotional bonds of elephants, from the dreams of octopuses to the languages of whales. There is no test at the end, no rush, no urgency, just the gentle unfolding of the remarkable intelligence that surrounds us to carry you softly towards sleep. So let your breathing slow, let your thoughts grow quiet, and allow yourself to drift into the peaceful wonder of animal minds. Welcome to Drowsy Discovery. I am glad you found your way here tonight. Perhaps you have had a long day. Perhaps you simply enjoy falling asleep to thoughts about the remarkable processes happening within the minds of other creatures. Either way, this space is for you. There is something deeply calming about contemplating the intelligence of animals. Every instinct, every act of communication, every quiet moment of connection carries within it a story millions of years in the making. You are part of that story. The same evolutionary forces that shaped the minds of dolphins and elephants also shaped your own. The capacity for thought, feeling, and awareness has been passed down through countless generations, written into the very fabric of life itself. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. So settle in, let the weight of the day drift away, and let us begin with the first of many quiet truths about animal minds. Animal intelligence is patient beyond measure. Crows learn to solve puzzles through careful observation. Elephants remember the paths their ancestors walked decades before. Dolphins teach their young skills that will take years to master. And yet, within all that slowness, there are sudden bursts of wonder, flashes of insight that solve problems in an instant, acts of compassion that bridge the gap between species, moments of play that reveal the sheer joy of being alive. Tonight, we will wander through this magnificent world of thought and feeling. We will meet the creatures who remember, who plan, who comfort one another in times of distress. We will discover how intelligence has evolved in countless forms across the tree of life. And we will uncover truths about animal minds that may surprise even the most curious souls. But there is no hurry. The minds of animals have been developing for millions of years. They can continue their quiet work while you rest. Let us begin with the wonders hidden within the minds of other creatures. Dogs can detect human emotions through scent alone. The bond between dogs and humans runs far deeper than simple companionship, extending into the realm of chemical communication through scent that allows dogs to perceive our emotional states with remarkable accuracy. When humans experience different emotions, such as fear, happiness, or stress, our bodies release distinct chemical signatures in our sweat and breath that dogs can detect with their extraordinarily sensitive noses. A dog's olfactory system contains roughly 300 million scent receptors compared to only about 6 million in humans, enabling them to detect molecules at concentrations nearly 100,000 times lower than we can perceive. Research has demonstrated that dogs exposed to the scent of fearful humans showed increased heart rates and stress behaviors, while those exposed to the scent of happy humans displayed more relaxed and sociable behavior. This ability likely evolved during the thousands of years dogs have lived alongside humans, as individuals who could read their human companions' emotional states would have been more successful at navigating social situations. Dogs may use this information to determine whether a stranger is threatening or whether their owner needs comfort. Octopuses experience something like dreaming during sleep. Observations of sleeping octopuses have revealed something extraordinary about the inner lives of these remarkable creatures, as they appear to cycle through different states of consciousness that resemble the sleep stages experienced by mammals. During sleep, octopuses display two distinct phases, including a quiet phase where their skin remains pale and still, and an active phase where their colors shift dramatically in rippling patterns while their bodies twitch and move. These color changes during active sleep mirror the kinds of patterns octopuses display when hunting, hiding, or interacting with their environment while awake. Researchers believe that this active sleep phase may involve the octopus replaying or processing experiences from its waking life, much as humans are thought to consolidate memories during dream sleep. The neural architecture of octopuses is radically different from our own, with most of their neurons distributed throughout their arms rather than concentrated in a central brain, yet they appear to have evolved similar sleep mechanisms independently. This suggests that cycling through different sleep stages may be a fundamental requirement for complex nervous systems, regardless of how they are organized. Dolphins address each other using unique signature whistles. Among the most sophisticated communication systems in the animal kingdom, the signature whistles of dolphins function remarkably like human names, allowing these intelligent marine mammals to identify and call out to specific individuals within their social groups. Each dolphin develops its own distinct signature whistle during the first few months of life, creating a unique acoustic identity that remains stable throughout its lifetime. When dolphins are separated from companions or wish to establish contact, they produce the signature whistle of the individual they are seeking, essentially calling that dolphin by name across the vastness of the ocean. Playback experiments have confirmed that dolphins respond more strongly when they hear their own signature whistle than when they hear other whistles, demonstrating genuine recognition of this acoustic identity. Dolphins can remember the signature whistles of companions they have not encountered for decades, suggesting that these acoustic names form an important part of their long-term social memory. Some researchers believe that this naming system allows dolphins to maintain complex social relationships across the fluid, three-dimensional environment of the ocean where visual contact is often limited. Crows can remember specific human faces for many years. The remarkable memory of crows extends to detailed recognition of individual human faces, a capacity that has made these intelligent birds excellent subjects for studying animal cognition and social learning. Experiments have demonstrated that crows who witnessed a threatening human wearing a particular mask would scold and mob that masked individual not just immediately after the event, but for years afterward. Even more remarkably, crows who were not present during the original threatening encounter learned to recognize and respond to the dangerous face simply by observing the behavior of other crows, demonstrating that face recognition spreads socially through crow populations. Brain imaging of crows viewing threatening versus neutral faces has revealed activation patterns similar to those seen in human brains during face processing, suggesting that crows may have evolved specialized neural machinery for this task. This ability serves important survival functions, as crows frequently interact with humans in urban and agricultural environments where some individuals may pose threats, while others are harmless or even beneficial. The capacity to remember faces for years allows crows to navigate these complex social landscapes with remarkable precision. Elephants offer comfort to grieving members of their herd. The emotional intelligence of elephants reveals itself most powerfully in their tender responses to distressed companions, behavior that appears strikingly similar to human consolation and empathy. When an elephant is upset or frightened, other members of the herd gather around, gently touching the distressed individual with their trunks, making soft, rumbling vocalizations, and sometimes even placing their trunks in the distressed elephant's mouth in a gesture of comfort. These consolation behaviors suggest that elephants recognize the emotional states of their companions and are motivated to alleviate suffering, capacities that require a sophisticated understanding of others' mental experiences. The response is particularly intense when herds encounter the remains of deceased elephants, often leading to extended periods of touching, examining, and standing silently near the bones of their fallen relatives. Elephants have been observed returning repeatedly to sites where companions died, suggesting that they maintain lasting emotional connections to specific individuals and locations. This capacity for empathy and grief appears to be supported by the exceptionally large and complex brains of elephants, which contain specialized neurons associated with social cognition in humans and other great apes. Parrots comprehend the meaning of words rather than just mimicking sounds. While parrots are famous for their ability to reproduce human speech, extensive research has revealed that at least some species go far beyond simple mimicry to achieve genuine understanding of the words they use. The most thoroughly studied individual was an African gray parrot who could identify colors, shapes, materials, and quantities, answering questions about objects with accuracy comparable to young children. This remarkable bird could also combine concepts in novel ways, demonstrating that he understood the relationships between words rather than simply associating specific sounds with specific rewards. When shown a new object, he could correctly describe its color, shape, and material, showing generalization of concepts to unfamiliar items. This capacity for symbolic communication appears to require extensive training and social interaction, suggesting that the potential exists within the parrot brain but must be developed through appropriate experience. The discovery that animals with brains organized so differently from our own can acquire symbolic language has challenged long-standing assumptions about the uniqueness of human cognition. Parrots demonstrate that the capacity for referential communication may have evolved multiple times in different lineages. Rats produce sounds resembling laughter when they play. Beneath the range of human hearing, playing rats produce ultrasonic vocalizations that share striking similarities with human laughter, suggesting that joy may be a far more ancient emotion than we once believed. These chirping sounds, at frequencies around 50 kilohertz, are produced most frequently during positive experiences such as play with other rats, gentle handling by familiar humans, and anticipation of rewarding events. When researchers used sensitive equipment to detect these sounds and then tickled the rats, they discovered that individual rats varied in their tendency to produce these chirps, with the most responsive rats also being the most playful and sociable. Rats prefer to spend time with other rats who chirp frequently during play and will work to gain access to locations where they previously heard these positive vocalizations. The similarity to human laughter extends to the social context, as the chirps function to signal positive intentions and encourage continued playful interaction. This research has contributed to growing scientific recognition that positive emotional states are not unique to humans, but likely evolved early in the mammalian lineage. Certain fish use rocks as tools to break open shells. The discovery of tool use in fish has fundamentally changed our understanding of animal cognition, demonstrating that flexible problem-solving behavior is not limited to animals with large brains or complex social structures. Several species of wrasse have been observed carrying hard-shelled prey, such as clams and sea urchins, to specific locations where they smash them against anvil rocks to crack them open. This behavior requires the fish to remember the locations of suitable anvil rocks, transport prey over considerable distances, and execute precise, striking movements to break the shells without losing the contents. The behavior appears to be learned rather than purely instinctive, as individual fish develop preferences for particular anvil sites and improve their technique with practice. Some fish even prepare the anvil site by clearing away debris before using it, suggesting planning and forethought. The presence of tool use in fish, whose brains are organized very differently from those of mammals and birds, suggests that the cognitive requirements for tool use may be more widely distributed across the animal kingdom than previously assumed. Ravens demonstrate the ability to plan for future events. The capacity to anticipate and prepare for future needs has long been considered a hallmark of human intelligence, yet ravens have demonstrated this ability in controlled experiments that rule out simpler explanations. When given the opportunity to select a tool that would only be useful for accessing food in a future encounter, ravens consistently chose the correct tool and saved it, even when the test occurred many hours later in a different location. This behavior suggests that ravens can mentally represent future states of the world and take actions in the present to achieve goals that do not yet exist. The ravens also showed impressive self-control, ignoring immediate but less valuable rewards in favor of tools that would provide access to better rewards later. This future planning ability appears to extend to social situations as well, with ravens making strategic decisions about when and where to cache food based on what they know about who might be watching. The discovery of future planning in birds suggests that this cognitive capacity evolved independently in the bird lineage, despite their brains being organized very differently from those of apes and humans. Chimpanzees pass cultural traditions to their offspring. Across Africa, different populations of chimpanzees exhibit distinct sets of behaviors that are passed from generation to generation not through genes, but through social learning, constituting genuine cultural traditions remarkably similar to human customs. These traditions include specific techniques for cracking nuts, fishing for termites, using leaves as sponges to drink water, and dozens of other learned behaviors that vary between groups. Young chimpanzees spend years observing their mothers and other group members performing these traditional behaviors before they can execute them successfully themselves, a pattern of prolonged learning that mirrors human childhood. When chimpanzees are transferred between groups, they often adopt the traditions of their new community while retaining some practices from their original group, demonstrating that these behaviors are acquired through observation rather than being genetically determined. Field researchers have documented over 40 distinct behavioral variations across chimpanzee populations that appear to be culturally transmitted. The existence of culture in chimpanzees suggests that the human capacity for cumulative cultural evolution may have its roots in abilities that predate our divergence from other great apes. bees can grasp the abstract concept of zero. The discovery that honeybees understand the concept of zero has revolutionized our understanding of numerical cognition, demonstrating that even animals with brains containing fewer than 1 million neurons can grasp abstract mathematical concepts. When trained to identify which of two displays contained fewer elements, bees learn not only to count and compare quantities, but also to recognize that an empty display represented a quantity less than any positive number. This understanding of zero as a quantity smaller than other quantities is conceptually sophisticated, as it requires treating the absence of something as a meaningful numerical value. Human children typically do not master this concept until several years of age, making the discovery that bees can achieve this understanding particularly remarkable. The bees' performance improved with practice, suggesting that they were genuinely learning the concept rather than responding to simpler cues. This research adds to growing evidence that numerical cognition may be a more fundamental and widespread capability in the animal kingdom than previously assumed. The tiny bee brain appears to contain the neural machinery necessary for abstract numerical thought. Orcas transmit hunting strategies across generations. Different populations of orcas around the world have developed distinct hunting techniques that are passed from older to younger individuals through observation and practice, constituting cultural traditions as sophisticated as any found outside of human societies. Orcas in one region have developed the technique of intentionally beaching themselves to catch seals on shorelines, a dangerous maneuver that mothers carefully teach their calves over years of practice in safe conditions. In other regions, orcas create waves to wash seals off ice floes, coordinate to herd fish into tight balls, or use sophisticated vocal strategies to confuse their prey. These techniques are not instinctive, but must be learned through prolonged exposure to experienced hunters, and different orca societies maintain distinct cultural repertoires even when their ranges overlap. The transmission of hunting knowledge creates lineages of cultural tradition that can be traced across generations, similar to human family traditions. Young orcas that lose their mothers early sometimes fail to master the full range of hunting techniques, demonstrating how dependent they are on cultural transmission. This sophisticated cultural learning helps explain why orcas have become one of the most successful predators on Earth. Pigeons can distinguish between paintings by different artists. In experiments that have challenged assumptions about the visual cognition of birds, pigeons have demonstrated the ability to categorize paintings by artistic style, distinguishing works by different painters with surprising accuracy. Pigeons trained to peck at a button when shown paintings by one artist, and a different button when shown paintings by another learned not only to respond correctly to the training images, but also to generalize this discrimination to paintings they had never seen before. This suggests that pigeons were extracting stylistic features common to each artist's work, rather than simply memorizing individual paintings. The discrimination extended to distinguishing between artistic movements and even between paintings of varying quality, as judged by human experts. Pigeons have also demonstrated the ability to distinguish between categories such as photographs containing humans versus those without, or natural scenes versus man-made structures. These findings suggest that the avian visual system, though organized very differently from the mammalian system, contains sophisticated machinery for extracting and categorizing visual features. The humble pigeon brain proves capable of aesthetic discriminations that were once thought to require human-level intelligence. Ants guide each other to food sources through teaching. The social insects have evolved forms of information transfer that in some cases meet the scientific criteria for true teaching, with experienced individuals modifying their behavior to help naive individuals learn skills more efficiently. In certain ant species, Foragers who have discovered food sources lead nest mates to them through a process called tandem running, where the leader proceeds slowly, waits when the follower falls behind, and adjusts its pace to the follower's learning rate. The leader sacrifices considerable time compared to traveling alone, suggesting that the behavior functions specifically to teach rather than simply to travel together. The follower learns the route during the tandem run and can subsequently travel it independently, demonstrating that knowledge has been transferred. Experiments removing the teaching behavior result in followers failing to learn routes efficiently, confirming that the teaching serves a genuine knowledge transfer function. This represents one of the clearest examples of teaching in non-human animals, challenging the assumption that such sophisticated social learning requires large brains. The collective intelligence of ant colonies depends partly on these mechanisms of knowledge transfer between individuals. Elephants recognize their own reflection in mirrors. The mirror self-recognition test has long been used as a measure of self-awareness in animals, and elephants join a select group of species that have passed this challenging cognitive assessment. When confronted with a mirror, elephants initially explore it as if investigating another elephant, but they soon begin using it to examine parts of their own bodies they cannot normally see. The definitive test involves placing a mark on the animal's body that can only be seen in the mirror, with elephants reliably touching and investigating the mark using their trunks after viewing their reflection. This behavior demonstrates that elephants understand the relationship between the reflection and their own bodies, a conceptual breakthrough that most species never achieve. Only great apes, dolphins, certain corvid birds, and a few other species have demonstrated this capacity in controlled tests. The presence of mirror self-recognition in elephants, whose lineage diverged from primates many millions of years ago, suggests that self-awareness may have evolved independently multiple times. This cognitive capacity likely relates to the complex social lives of elephants, where understanding oneself as an individual among other individuals has survival value. A small tropical fish has passed the mirror self-recognition test. The cleaner wrasse, a small fish that removes parasites from larger fish on coral reefs, has become the first fish species to pass the mirror self-recognition test, a result that has prompted reconsideration of what this test actually measures and how widely self-awareness may be distributed in the animal kingdom. When marked with colored spots visible only in a mirror, cleaner wrasse attempted to scrape off the marks by rubbing against surfaces, behavior not seen when the marks were transparent or when no mirror was present. The fish also displayed distinctive self-directed behavior when viewing their reflections, seeming to use the mirror to examine themselves from different angles. This finding has generated considerable scientific debate about whether fish possess genuine self-awareness or whether the behavior might reflect other cognitive mechanisms. The cleaner wrasse lifestyle requires maintaining individual relationships with hundreds of client fish, suggesting that their brains may have evolved sophisticated social cognition. Whether or not this represents conscious self-awareness similar to that of humans, the finding demonstrates cognitive sophistication in an animal with a brain far smaller than those of other species that pass this test. Horses retain memories of people who treated them kindly. The long-term memory of horses extends to remembering specific individuals and the quality of their past interactions, with horses showing more positive responses to people who previously treated them gently than to strangers or those who caused them discomfort. Research has demonstrated that horses can recognize individual humans by both face and voice, and that they associate these identities with the emotional quality of past encounters. Horses showed relaxed body language and approached more readily when reunited with trainers who had treated them positively, even after substantial separations. This recognition appears to involve both visual and auditory cues, as horses respond to photographs of familiar humans and to recordings of their voices. The evolutionary basis for this capacity likely relates to the complex social hierarchies of wild horse bands, where remembering individual identities and past interactions helps navigate social relationships. Domestication may have shaped these abilities further, as horses that could distinguish between helpful and harmful humans would have experienced better treatment and care. The bond between horses and trusted humans appears to be built on these sophisticated memory and recognition systems. Some birds deceive others by pretending to hide food elsewhere. The caching behavior of corvids, such as jays and ravens, includes sophisticated strategies for protecting hidden food from potential thieves, including deliberate deception through false caching. Birds who notice that they are being watched while hiding food will subsequently move that cache to a new location, or will make false caching movements where they appear to hide food, but actually keep it hidden in their beak. These deceptive behaviors occur more frequently when the watcher is dominant and therefore capable of stealing the food, suggesting that the cacher is strategically assessing the threat level. Remarkably, the most prolific deceivers are birds who have themselves stolen from others' caches, implying that they may be projecting their own thieving tendencies onto potential watchers. This pattern suggests a form of mental state attribution, where birds take into account what others might know and what others might do based on that knowledge. The cognitive sophistication required for such tactical deception was once thought to be limited to primates, but corvids have demonstrated that it can evolve in species with very different brain architectures. Dolphins use natural sponges to protect their snouts while foraging. In the shallow waters of Shark Bay in Australia, some bottlenose dolphins have developed an unusual practice of tearing marine sponges from the seafloor and wearing them over their snouts like protective gloves while foraging for fish hidden in the substrate. This sponge tool use appears to protect the dolphins' sensitive rostrums from abrasions and stings as they probe rocky and sandy areas where prey fish hide. The behavior is not universal among dolphins, but rather is passed from mothers to daughters, creating a distinctive cultural tradition maintained within specific family lines. Studies tracking the distribution of sponge use across generations have confirmed that the behavior is learned rather than genetically determined, as it does not follow the patterns that would be expected from simple inheritance. Female dolphins show higher rates of sponge use than males, possibly because males invest more time in forming social alliances than in developing foraging techniques. The discovery of tool use in dolphins adds to growing evidence that these marine mammals possess the cognitive flexibility and cultural learning capacity previously associated mainly with great apes. Sea otters keep favorite stones for cracking shellfish. The tool use of sea otters represents one of the most enduring and well-documented examples of tool use among wild marine mammals, with individual otters maintaining personal stone tools that they carry with them across days and even weeks. Floating on their backs at the water's surface, otters place a flat stone on their chests and pound shellfish against it to crack open the hard protective shells. Individual otters develop preferences for particular stones with the right size, weight, and shape, keeping these favored tools tucked into loose folds of skin under their arms while diving for food. Mothers teach their pups the technique of using anvil stones, demonstrating the behavior repeatedly while the young otters watch and practice. The cultural transmission of tool use helps maintain this tradition across generations within otter populations. Studies have shown that some otters will search extensively for a lost favorite stone rather than simply selecting a replacement, suggesting genuine attachment to specific tools. This sophisticated tool behavior demonstrates planning, individual preferences, and social learning in a marine mammal. Gibbons strengthen pair bonds through coordinated singing. In the forests of Southeast Asia, the haunting duets of gibbon pairs ring through the canopy each morning as mated couples reinforce their bonds through elaborate coordinated singing that can last for hours. These songs follow species-specific patterns, with males and females taking distinct vocal parts that interweave in complex arrangements developed through years of practice together. Young gibbon pairs often produce disjointed, poorly coordinated songs, but with time, their duets become increasingly synchronized and elaborate, suggesting that the quality of the duet reflects the strength and duration of the pair bond. The songs serve multiple functions, including advertising the pair's territory to neighboring groups, signaling their continued partnership, and possibly allowing mates to assess each other's physical condition. Females typically begin the duet with a distinctive call called the Great Call, and males contribute shorter phrases that complement and enhance their partner's vocalizations. The development of a well-coordinated duet appears to require significant investment from both partners, making the song itself a signal of commitment. These vocal performances represent one of the most sophisticated examples of cooperative communication in the animal kingdom. Prairie dogs use detailed calls that describe specific predators. The alarm calls of prairie dogs contain far more information than simple warnings of danger, encoding detailed descriptions of predators that allow listeners to respond appropriately to specific threats. Research has demonstrated that prairie dogs produce distinctly different calls for different predator types, including hawks, coyotes, domestic dogs, and humans, with each call type eliciting specific escape behaviors suited to that threat. Even more remarkably, the calls appear to encode information about the predator's size, shape, and color, allowing prairie dogs to distinguish between individual humans and to describe features such as whether a person is carrying a gun. When researchers played back recordings of calls describing different predators, prairie dogs responded with behaviors appropriate to each threat type, even though no actual predator was present. This level of descriptive content in alarm calls approaches the referential quality of human language, where arbitrary sounds convey specific meanings. The prairie dog communication system has become an important model for studying the evolution of complex signaling in social animals. These small rodents demonstrate that sophisticated communication systems can evolve to meet the demands of predator-rich environments. Orangutans fashion leaf umbrellas to shelter from rain. The orangutans of Borneo and Sumatra display remarkable ingenuity in using plant materials to solve everyday problems, including the construction of temporary shelters using large leaves held overhead during rain showers. This behavior is not instinctive, but rather appears to be invented by clever individuals and passed through social learning to others who observe the technique. Orangutans also construct elaborate sleeping platforms each night by weaving branches together into comfortable nests, demonstrating sophisticated understanding of structural principles and material properties. The use of leaves as protective covers extends to shielding themselves from the sun and creating barriers against thorny vegetation. Beyond shelter construction, orangutans use sticks to extract insects from tree holes, leaves as napkins to wipe their faces, and bark as sound amplifiers for their long calls. The range of tool use in wild orangutans exceeds what is typically seen in captive individuals, suggesting that rich natural environments provide both the challenges and opportunities needed for such innovation. Orangutan tool use provides important insights into the cognitive abilities we share with our close evolutionary relatives. Wolves coordinate hunts like experienced team members. The hunting success of wolf packs depends on sophisticated coordination among pack members, with individuals taking on complementary roles that change dynamically as the hunt progresses. Some wolves serve as drivers who push prey toward waiting ambushers, while others cut off escape routes or test the health and vulnerability of individual prey animals. This coordination does not appear to be rigidly programmed, but rather emerges from the wolves' understanding of each situation and each other's likely actions. Experienced wolves adjust their positions based on terrain, prey behavior, and the locations of their pack mates, suggesting flexible tactical thinking rather than simple following of innate rules. Young wolves learn hunting techniques through observation and participation over years of practice, initially taking minor roles before gradually assuming more central positions in complex hunts. The social bonds that hold wolf packs together enable this coordination, as pack members who have hunted together for years develop understanding of each other's tendencies and abilities. Wolf hunting demonstrates that effective cooperation can emerge from the combination of individual intelligence, social learning, and strong group bonds. Elephants instinctively understand the value of cooperation. Experimental studies have demonstrated that elephants understand when cooperation is necessary and can coordinate their actions with partners to achieve goals that neither could accomplish alone. In tests requiring two elephants to pull opposite ends of a rope simultaneously to access food, elephants quickly learned to wait for their partner before pulling, demonstrating understanding that uncoordinated action would be futile. When partners were released at different times, the first elephant would wait without pulling until the second arrived, showing anticipation of the need for coordinated action. Elephants also showed awareness of when their partner could not participate effectively, abandoning futile attempts rather than wasting effort. This capacity for cooperative problem-solving likely reflects the demands of elephant social life, where coordinated action is essential for collective defense against predators, assistance in raising calves, and navigation across vast landscapes. The experimental demonstrations of cooperative understanding in elephants complement field observations of natural cooperation, such as when herds work together to rescue stranded calves. Elephants appear to possess an intuitive understanding of teamwork that rivals or exceeds that seen in other highly social mammals. Ravens exchange objects for rewards like a form of currency. The cognitive flexibility of ravens extends to economic-like exchanges, where these intelligent birds have demonstrated the ability to trade tokens for food rewards and even to exercise restraint by saving tokens for better rewards later. In experimental studies, ravens learned that specific tokens could be exchanged with human researchers for food, and they consistently chose valuable tokens over less valuable alternatives. When given the opportunity to trade immediately for a small reward or to wait and trade later for a larger reward, many ravens chose the delayed but better option, demonstrating impulse control rivaling that seen in great apes. Ravens also learned to distinguish between researchers who would honor token exchanges and those who would not, showing understanding of the social contract underlying trading relationships. This capacity for symbolic exchange suggests that ravens possess the cognitive prerequisites for basic economic reasoning, including understanding that tokens represent future value. The emergence of such abilities in birds, whose brains evolved independently from mammalian brains, demonstrates that the cognitive demands of complex social life can produce similar solutions in very different neural architectures. Some parrots invent new words to describe unfamiliar objects. Beyond learning to use human words through training, some parrots have demonstrated the remarkable ability to combine known words in novel ways to describe objects for which they have no existing label. The most famous example was an African gray parrot, who, when shown an apple for the first time, described it using a combination of the words he knew for other fruits, effectively creating a new compound term. This kind of productive language use, where existing vocabulary is recombined to express new meanings, represents a fundamental feature of human language that was once thought to be unique to our species. The parrot's spontaneous word combinations suggested understanding of the semantic relationships between words rather than simple association between sounds and rewards. Other parrots have shown similar creative language use when confronted with novel objects or situations, though the degree of genuine linguistic creativity versus trained associations remains a subject of scientific debate. Regardless of how we interpret these behaviors, they demonstrate cognitive flexibility and communicative intent that challenge simple views of parrot speech as mere mimicry. Dolphins use signature whistles to reunite after separation. When dolphin groups become separated during travel or foraging, the distinctive signature whistles that serve as acoustic names become crucial for re-establishing contact across the murky ocean environment where visual communication is limited. Dolphins produce their own signature whistles more frequently when separated from companions, and when in unfamiliar waters, essentially announcing their identity and seeking reunion. When dolphins hear the signature whistle of a close companion, they often respond by producing that same whistle back, a behavior that may serve to confirm identity and indicate readiness to reunite. Playback experiments have demonstrated that dolphins respond with increased attention and searching behavior when they hear the signature whistles of individuals they have not encountered for years, suggesting that these acoustic identities persist in long-term memory. The system allows dolphins to maintain complex social networks despite the challenges of coordinating in a three-dimensional environment where companions may be out of sight. Mother-calf pairs use signature whistles extensively to maintain contact during the years of calf dependency. The signature whistle system represents one of the most sophisticated naming systems known outside of human language. Scrub jays remember who was watching when they hid food. The food caching behavior of scrub jays reveals sophisticated social cognition, as these birds not only remember where they hid food, but also track which other individuals were present and might therefore know the cache locations. Jays observed while caching subsequently show increased likelihood of moving those specific caches when the observer is gone, while leaving unobserved caches in place. This selective recaching suggests that jays understand that potential thieves know what they saw and might use that knowledge to steal. Even more remarkably, jays who have themselves stolen from others show more recaching behavior than jays who have never stolen, as if they project their own thieving tendencies onto potential competitors. This attribution of mental states to others, including knowledge and intentions, was once thought to be unique to humans and possibly great apes. The scrub jay research has been central to establishing that theory of mind, the understanding that others have minds with beliefs and knowledge may be more widespread in the animal kingdom than previously assumed. These small birds demonstrate social intelligence that rivals that of much larger-brained mammals. Bees can be trained to recognize individual human faces. Despite possessing brains smaller than a grain of rice, honeybees have demonstrated the ability to learn and remember individual human faces, distinguishing between different people in controlled experiments. Researchers trained bees to associate specific human faces with sugar rewards, and the bees learned to fly toward the correct face even when other features, such as color and size, were controlled for. The bees' face recognition persisted over multiple days, indicating formation of long-term memories. This finding was surprising because bees do not naturally encounter human faces and would have no evolutionary reason to develop face recognition specifically for humans. Instead, the results suggest that bees possess general-purpose pattern recognition abilities that can be applied to any sufficiently complex visual stimulus. The insect brain appears to use different mechanisms than the primate brain to achieve face recognition, providing insights into how different neural architectures can solve similar problems. This research has implications for understanding both the capabilities of small brains and the fundamental processes underlying pattern recognition across different types of nervous systems. Bonobos use eye contact to resolve conflicts peacefully. Unlike their close relatives, the chimpanzees, who often escalate conflicts into violence, bonobos have developed sophisticated mechanisms for diffusing tension that rely heavily on eye contact and other forms of social communication. When potential conflicts arise, bonobos frequently engage in prolonged mutual gazing that appears to calm both parties and redirect aggressive energy toward prosocial interactions. This use of eye contact is complemented by other reconciliation behaviors, including touching, embracing, and physical closeness. Research has shown that bonobos are highly attuned to the gaze direction of others and use this information to coordinate social interactions. The bonobo social structure, dominated by females and emphasizing cooperation over competition, appears to support the evolution of these peaceful conflict resolution strategies. Eye contact serves as a bridge for establishing mutual understanding and shared intention, allowing bonobos to navigate their complex social relationships without the frequent violent confrontations seen in other great ape societies. The bonobo approach to conflict resolution provides insights into the diversity of social strategies available to highly intelligent social animals. Dolphins support injured companions to help them breathe. The altruistic behavior of dolphins towards sick or injured companions reveals a depth of social awareness and compassion that has long fascinated researchers studying animal cognition. When a dolphin is too weak to swim to the surface to breathe, other dolphins frequently support the struggling individual by swimming beneath it and pushing it toward the surface where it can access air. This behavior requires not only recognition that the companion is in distress, but also understanding of what the companion needs and how to provide it. Supporting behavior has been observed across multiple dolphin species and can continue for extended periods, with different dolphins taking turns supporting the weakened individual. The behavior sometimes extends to helping individuals who are clearly too compromised to survive, suggesting that dolphins do not calculate the likelihood of success before offering aid. Similar supportive behaviors have been documented in wild dolphins assisting humans in distress at sea. The capacity for such targeted helping behavior suggests that dolphins possess sophisticated understanding of others' needs and the empathic motivation to address those needs. Crows drop nuts on roads so vehicles can crack them open. In urban environments around the world, crows have developed the innovative strategy of using vehicles as tools for processing hard-shelled foods that they cannot crack with their beaks alone. Crows carry nuts to roads, place them in the path of vehicles, wait for cars to crush the shells, and then retrieve the exposed contents during breaks in traffic. Some populations have refined this technique further by dropping nuts specifically at pedestrian crossings, where traffic lights provide regular intervals for safe retrieval. This behavior demonstrates multiple cognitive abilities, including causal reasoning about the effects of vehicles on hard objects, planning sequences of actions to achieve goals, and understanding the predictable patterns of traffic signals. The behavior appears to spread through crow populations via social learning, as naive crows observe and adopt the techniques of successful individuals. Urban crows show remarkable flexibility in adapting their problem-solving to the novel challenges and opportunities provided by human environments. This nut-cracking strategy represents one of the most striking examples of animal innovation involving human technology. Spiders alter their web designs under different conditions. The web-building behavior of spiders demonstrates remarkable flexibility, with individuals adjusting web architecture based on their physical condition, recent feeding success, and characteristics of the environment. Hungry spiders tend to build webs with more radial threads and closer spacing between spiral threads, creating more efficient capture surfaces at the cost of greater silk investment. Spiders also modify their webs in response to the types of prey available, adjusting thread spacing to optimize for local insect populations. Some species incorporate special structures into their webs, including zigzag patterns called stabilimenta that may function to attract prey, warn birds, or camouflage the spider. The ability to make such adjustments suggests that spiders possess some representation of the relationship between web design and capture success, even if this understanding operates through simple rules rather than conscious calculation. Research has shown that web-building decisions involve integration of multiple sources of information, including internal states, recent experience, and environmental cues. The sophisticated flexibility of spider web construction challenges simple views of invertebrate behavior as rigidly programmed and invariable. Elephants return to visit the bones of deceased relatives. The relationship between elephants and the remains of their dead is among the most poignant evidence for complex emotional lives in non-human animals, as elephants frequently seek out, examine, and stand vigil over the bones of deceased family members. When elephants encounter elephant bones, they show intense interest even when the bones belong to unrelated individuals, touching and turning them with their trunks and feet in what appears to be careful examination. However, elephants show particularly strong responses to the remains of recently deceased family members, spending extended periods near the bones and returning to the site repeatedly over months or years. Elephants have been observed carrying bones and tusks from death sites, behavior whose function remains unclear, but which may relate to grief or mourning processes. The strong reactions to elephant remains contrast with relative indifference to the bones of other large mammals, suggesting specific recognition of their own species. Researchers studying elephant grief note parallels with human mourning behaviors, including prolonged attention to the deceased, reluctance to leave the site, and apparent distress. These observations suggest that elephants may possess enduring emotional connections to specific individuals. Whales develop unique song dialects within their pods. The vocalization patterns of whale species, such as orcas and sperm whales, vary distinctively between different social groups, with each group maintaining characteristic calling patterns that function like dialects or cultural markers of group identity. Orca pods in the same region may have completely different call repertoires despite sharing genetic backgrounds and overlapping ranges, and these vocal traditions are maintained across generations through social learning. Young whales learn the calls of their natal group and maintain those calls throughout their lives, creating cultural continuity that can persist for centuries. When researchers analyze the acoustic patterns of different whale groups, they find that call similarity corresponds to social relationship rather than genetic kinship, confirming that the patterns are culturally rather than genetically transmitted. These vocal dialects may serve functions including recognizing group members, coordinating group activities, and maintaining group boundaries. The stability of whale vocal traditions over time demonstrates a capacity for cultural transmission rivaling that seen in human societies. Whales carry acoustic traditions that connect them to generations past. Some fish demonstrate basic counting abilities. Research on numerical cognition has revealed that even fish possess the ability to distinguish between different quantities and to make choices based on numerical comparisons. Mosquito fish, for example, preferentially join larger shoals when given the choice between groups of different sizes, suggesting that they can assess and compare numerical quantities. The preference persists even when researchers control for other factors such as total amount of movement or surface area, confirming that fish are responding to number per se. Similar abilities have been demonstrated in guppies, angelfish, and other species, indicating that basic numerical cognition may be widespread among fish. The precision of numerical discrimination follows patterns similar to those seen in humans and other animals, with performance declining as the ratio between quantities becomes more similar. Fish appear to use both exact counting for small numbers and approximate estimation for larger quantities, a dual system also found in human numerical cognition. These findings suggest that the foundations of mathematical thinking may be ancient, present in the common ancestors of fish and mammals. Dogs understand dozens of human words and gestures. While the average pet dog may recognize its name and a handful of commands, research has demonstrated that particularly talented dogs can learn to understand hundreds of human words, responding correctly to requests for specific toys by name from among large collections. The most thoroughly studied dogs have demonstrated understanding of nouns for individual objects, verbs for different actions, and even basic combinations of words that specify particular actions with particular objects. Beyond vocabulary, dogs show sophisticated understanding of human gestures, including pointing, gaze direction, and body orientation, using these cues to locate hidden food or objects in ways that even chimpanzees do not naturally exhibit. This sensitivity to human communication likely reflects thousands of years of domestication, during which dogs that could read human intentions had survival advantages. Dogs also show an ability to infer the meaning of new words through exclusion, recognizing that a novel word must refer to a novel object among familiar ones. The communicative abilities of dogs demonstrate how lengthy evolutionary partnership between species can shape cognitive abilities to serve interspecies understanding. Apes can learn sign language to express complex ideas. Several decades of research on language learning in great apes has demonstrated that chimpanzees, gorillas, and bonobos can acquire substantial vocabularies of signs or symbols and use them to communicate about objects, actions, and even internal states. Apes in language studies have learned hundreds of signs and can combine them in meaningful ways to express requests, describe situations, and respond to questions. Some apes have shown creative uses of their vocabularies, combining known signs in novel ways to describe unfamiliar objects or situations. The debate about whether apes truly understand language as a structured symbolic system or simply use signs as trained associations continues among researchers, but there is no dispute that apes can use symbols referentially and creatively. Ape language research has also revealed that great apes naturally possess sophisticated communicative abilities, including intentional gesturing, attention to others' communicative states, and understanding of others' knowledge and intentions. These studies have illuminated both the capacities that humans share with our closest relatives and the unique features of human language that remain unmatched in other species. Bees communicate flower locations through intricate dances. The waggle dance of honeybees represents one of the most remarkable examples of referential communication in the animal kingdom, allowing foragers to convey precise information about the distance, direction, and quality of food sources to nest mates who have never visited those locations. A bee returning from a productive foraging site performs a figure-8 dance on the vertical surface of the comb, with the angle of the central waggle run indicating the direction of the food relative to the sun, and the duration of the waggle indicating distance. Other bees crowding around the dancer extract this information and can then fly directly to food sources they have never seen. The dance language also conveys information about the abundance and quality of the food, influencing how many bees are recruited to the source. The discovery of this communication system by researchers in the early 20th century revolutionized understanding of insect cognition and remains one of the most studied examples of animal communication. The bee dance language demonstrates that complex symbolic communication can evolve in animals with very small brains when the ecological circumstances favor such capabilities. Rats display empathy by freeing trapped companions. Controlled experiments on rat behavior have revealed that rats will actively work to free trapped companions even when there is no apparent benefit to themselves, demonstrating empathic motivation that was once thought to be unique to primates. In these studies, a free rat encountering another rat trapped in a restraining device learned to open the device and release the trapped individual, choosing to do so consistently even when it required significant effort. Remarkably, when given simultaneous access to a trapped companion and a pile of chocolate chips, rats typically freed their companion before consuming all the chocolate, often sharing some of the treat. Rats showed no similar motivation to free an empty restrainer or a restrainer containing a toy rat, confirming that their behavior was specifically directed toward helping another living individual. The rats did not need to be taught how to open the restrainer, but figured out the mechanism on their own, suggesting intrinsic motivation to help. Female rats showed this helping behavior more reliably than males, potentially reflecting sex differences in empathic response. These findings demonstrate that basic empathic helping may be a deep-seated mammalian capacity. Octopuses carry coconut shells as portable shelters. The veined octopus of the tropical Indo-Pacific has been observed engaging in behavior that meets the criteria for true tool use, collecting coconut shell halves from the seafloor and carrying them for later use as protective hiding places. Octopuses transport these shells by awkwardly stilt-walking across the ocean floor while gripping the shells beneath their bodies, a mode of locomotion that is energetically costly and leaves them vulnerable to predators during transport. The fact that octopuses accept these costs suggests they understand that the shells will provide future benefits, demonstrating planning and foresight. Once the octopus reaches a suitable location, it assembles the shell halves into a protective shelter, sometimes manipulating multiple pieces to create an enclosed space. This behavior was observed repeatedly in wild octopuses and has been confirmed through extensive video documentation. The coconut shell tool use is learned rather than instinctive, as young octopuses must discover the behavior and develop skill through practice. Octopus tool use demonstrates that sophisticated cognitive abilities can evolve in invertebrates whose nervous systems are fundamentally different from those of vertebrates. Magpies recognize themselves in mirror reflections. The Eurasian magpie became the first non-mammal to demonstrate clear evidence of mirror self-recognition, passing the same mark test that had previously been passed only by great apes, dolphins, and elephants. When researchers placed a colored mark on magpies' feathers where it could only be seen in a mirror, the birds displayed mark-directed behavior, scratching at the mark while viewing their reflection. Control conditions ruled out alternative explanations, confirming that the magpies understood the relationship between the reflection and their own bodies. This finding was significant because magpies lack the neocortex, the brain region associated with complex cognition in mammals, suggesting that self-awareness can arise through different neural architectures. The presence of self-recognition in magpies supports the hypothesis that corvid birds, despite having brains organized very differently from those of mammals, have independently evolved cognitive abilities that rival those of apes and monkeys. The magpie result has inspired additional research on self-awareness in other bird species and has contributed to reconceptualization of the neural requirements for consciousness. These findings demonstrate that advanced cognition is not limited to a single evolutionary lineage. Dolphins work together to herd fish into tight formations. The cooperative hunting strategies of dolphins represent some of the most sophisticated examples of coordinated group behavior in the animal kingdom, requiring communication, role division, and precise timing among multiple individuals. Some dolphin populations have developed the technique of creating mud rings by stirring up sediment with their tails, which causes fish to leap out of the enclosed area where wading dolphins catch them in midair. Other populations use bubble nets to concentrate fish, coordinating the production and positioning of bubble curtains that function as barriers. In these hunts, different dolphins take on different roles, including drivers who push fish toward the trap, barrier maintainers who prevent escape, and catchers who harvest the concentrated prey. The roles may rotate among individuals, or certain dolphins may specialize in particular functions. Young dolphins learn these techniques by observing and practicing with experienced adults over periods of years. The cultural transmission of hunting strategies creates local traditions that distinguish different dolphin populations even within the same species. These coordinated hunts demonstrate that dolphins possess both the social understanding and the communication abilities necessary for complex teamwork. Chimpanzees recall faces of other chimps for decades. The long-term memory of chimpanzees for individual identities extends remarkably far into the past, with chimps recognizing and responding differently to individuals they have not seen for periods exceeding 20 years. Research using eye-tracking technology has demonstrated that chimpanzees look longer at photographs of individuals they formerly knew compared to strangers, indicating that they retained memories of these past associates. Even more remarkably, the chimps' responses varied based on their former relationship with the pictured individual, with more positive attention directed toward former friends than toward former rivals or neutral acquaintances. This suggests that chimpanzees store not just visual information about faces, but also social and emotional information about their relationships with specific individuals. The capacity for such long-term social memory likely supports the complex social lives of wild chimpanzees, where individuals may separate for extended periods before reuniting. Recognizing old friends and adversaries upon reunion allows chimps to resume appropriate social relationships without having to re-establish them from scratch. This deep memory for social identities provides a foundation for the sophisticated social cognition that chimpanzees display throughout their lives. Ravens conceal tools for later use. Beyond their well-documented ability to use and even manufacture tools, ravens have demonstrated the capacity to store tools for future use, hiding them in locations where they can be retrieved when needed. This behavior involves not just tool use, but planning and forethought, as the raven must anticipate future needs and take action in the present to address them. Ravens have been observed caching tools in the same way they cache food, selecting concealed locations and checking that they are not being observed before hiding. The hidden tools are subsequently retrieved when the raven encounters a situation where they are needed, demonstrating memory for both the location and the function of stored items. This future-oriented tool caching suggests that ravens can mentally represent future states of the world and their own future needs. The behavior complements other evidence of planning ability in ravens, including their performance in laboratory tests of future planning and their strategic behavior in social contexts. Ravens demonstrate that the cognitive abilities underlying planning and forethought can evolve in species whose brains are structured very differently from those of primates. Dogs experience jealousy when owners show affection to others. Research on the emotional lives of dogs has provided evidence that dogs experience something resembling jealousy when their owners direct attention and affection toward other dogs. In experimental studies, dogs showed significantly more attempts to push between their owners and a realistic stuffed dog that the owner was petting and talking to, compared to control conditions where the owner interacted with non-dog objects. The dog's behavior included snapping and aggressive approaches toward the stuffed rival, suggesting motivated attempts to interfere with the apparent social threat. Similar responses have been observed in more naturalistic settings when owners interact with real dogs in the presence of their own pets. The jealousy response appears to be specifically triggered by social attention from the owner rather than by the mere presence of another dog. Some researchers argue that this behavior demonstrates genuine emotional jealousy, while others suggest it may reflect more basic responses such as competition for resources. Regardless of interpretation, the findings confirm that dogs are highly sensitive to their owner's social attention and motivated to maintain their position in the social relationship. Ant colonies function as superorganisms with distributed intelligence. While individual ants possess only tiny brains with limited cognitive capacity, ant colonies as a whole display remarkable problem-solving abilities that emerge from the coordinated actions of thousands of individuals following simple behavioral rules. Colonies make collective decisions about where to forage, when to move nests, and how to allocate workers to different tasks, all without any centralized control or planning. These collective computations arise from local interactions among workers, with information flowing through the colony via touch, chemical signals, and observation of others' behavior. The resulting distributed intelligence allows colonies to respond adaptively to changing conditions, reallocating resources as circumstances shift, and finding efficient solutions to problems like locating the shortest path to a food source. The colony-level problem-solving in some ways resembles the processing of information in brains, with individual ants functioning like neurons in a larger cognitive system. This analogy has inspired both biological research on collective intelligence and engineering applications in robotics and computer science. Understanding how ant colonies think without individual ants thinking has become an important area of research in cognition and behavior. Horses can communicate preferences using visual symbols. Recent research has demonstrated that horses can be trained to use abstract symbols to communicate specific requests to human handlers, touching boards displaying different symbols to indicate whether they want a blanket put on, taken off, or left unchanged. The horses learn these symbol meanings through training and then use them appropriately based on weather conditions and their current state, requesting blankets on cold days and blanket removal on warm days. Critically, horses already wearing blankets requested no change or removal depending on temperature, while horses without blankets requested blankets in cold weather, demonstrating that their symbol use reflected genuine preferences rather than trained associations. The horses generalized their symbol use appropriately to novel situations, showing understanding of the communicative function rather than simple conditioned responses. This research adds to growing evidence that horses possess sophisticated cognitive abilities, including understanding of symbols, awareness of their own states, and the insight needed to use human-provided communication systems to express needs. Horses demonstrate cognitive flexibility that belies the view of ungulates as cognitively simple compared to primates or carnivores. Whale songs carry family histories across generations. The songs of whales, particularly humpback whales, undergo elaboration and transformation over time as individual innovations are incorporated into the collective repertoire and transmitted culturally across years and generations. Male humpback whales on the same breeding ground sing the same complex song at any given time, but that shared song evolves continuously as new phrases are introduced, old ones dropped, and structural modifications spread through the population. Changes spread horizontally across breeding populations as whales hear and adopt innovations from others, creating patterns of cultural transmission that can be tracked by researchers. In some cases, entire song themes spread across ocean basins as whales from different populations encounter each other and share acoustic traditions. The cultural evolution of whale song creates acoustic lineages that connect current singers to the traditions of previous generations. Young whales learn the current version of the song from older individuals and carry that tradition forward while continuing to incorporate innovations. The result is a living cultural heritage that encodes information about the history and relationships of whale populations. Cuttlefish can delay gratification for a better reward. Experiments on cuttlefish have demonstrated that these intelligent mollusks can resist eating an immediately available but less preferred food in order to wait for a better reward, showing impulse control comparable to that seen in birds and mammals. In the test, cuttlefish could see both a less desirable shrimp available immediately and a more desirable crab that would only become available after a delay. Individuals who succeeded at waiting for the better reward showed consistent patience across multiple trials. The waiting times cuttlefish tolerated were comparable to those seen in chimpanzees and corvids performing similar delayed gratification tests. Remarkably, individual cuttlefish showed consistent personality differences in their willingness to wait, with some individuals reliably patient and others reliably impulsive. The patient cuttlefish also performed better on learning tests, suggesting a relationship between impulse control and general cognitive ability. This capacity for delayed gratification requires what psychologists call executive function, the ability to override immediate impulses in favor of longer-term goals. The presence of such control in cuttlefish demonstrates that sophisticated self-regulation can evolve in nervous systems very different from our own. Gorillas use playful gestures to tease their companions. Observations of gorilla social behavior have documented extensive use of playful gesturing and what appears to be deliberate teasing, where one gorilla engages another with actions clearly designed to provoke a response or initiate play. Young gorillas frequently harass resting adults by poking them, pulling their hair, or rolling against them, until the adult responds with play or mild protest. These interactions appear to be intentionally provocative, as the harassing gorilla often shows play faces and body postures that signal playful rather than aggressive intent. Adult gorillas also engage in teasing behavior with each other and with juveniles, suggesting that this pattern of interaction persists throughout life. The teasing behavior demonstrates several cognitive abilities, including understanding of others' likely reactions, deliberate manipulation of social interactions, and appreciation of the difference between play and serious conflict. Teasing may serve important social functions, including strengthening bonds, testing relationships, and practicing social skills in low-stakes contexts. The presence of teasing in gorillas suggests that this form of social play may have deep evolutionary roots in our shared primate ancestry. Dolphins cooperate with human fishermen in traditional partnerships. In several locations around the world, wild dolphins and human fishermen have developed cooperative fishing relationships that benefit both parties, with dolphins driving fish toward human nets and receiving easy access to escaping fish as payment. These partnerships have been documented in coastal communities where the tradition has persisted for generations, passed down through both human families and dolphin social groups. The dolphins initiate the cooperative bouts by appearing near the shore and performing distinctive behaviors that signal their readiness to cooperate. Human fishermen have learned to recognize specific individual dolphins and wait for their particular signals before casting nets. The dolphins' driving behavior concentrates fish into dense schools that are easier to catch, while disoriented fish escaping from nets become easy prey for the dolphins. Young dolphins appear to learn the cooperative behavior by accompanying experienced adults during interactions with fishermen. These traditional partnerships demonstrate that interspecies cooperation can arise spontaneously when both parties benefit, requiring each species to understand and respond appropriately to the actions of the other. African gray parrots understand concepts of size and shape. Extensive research with African gray parrots has demonstrated that these birds can learn to categorize objects according to abstract properties such as size, shape, color, and material, generalizing their categories to novel objects they have never encountered. The most thoroughly studied parrot could answer questions about objects by correctly identifying their color, shape, size, and material composition, combining these categories to describe objects with multiple properties simultaneously. Beyond simple naming, this parrot demonstrated understanding of concepts like same and different, correctly identifying which of several objects shared properties with a sample. The parrot could also count objects and name the quantity, demonstrating numerical as well as categorical abilities. Training these complex cognitive abilities required years of patient instruction using interactive social methods rather than simple conditioning. The success of the training suggests that parrot brains contain the capacity for sophisticated conceptual reasoning, but require appropriate experience for that capacity to be expressed. African gray parrots have become important models for understanding how abstract cognition can emerge in brains very different from those of primates. Sea lions can grasp abstract rules and patterns. Research with California sea lions has demonstrated that these marine mammals can learn abstract logical rules and apply them to novel situations, demonstrating cognitive abilities that were once thought to require language or human-like reasoning. Sea lions trained on matching tasks learn not just specific stimulus-response associations, but general rules like if the sample is A, choose A from the options. Critically, the sea lions could then apply these learned rules to completely novel stimuli they had never seen before, showing true abstraction rather than memorization. Some sea lions have been trained on equivalence relations, learning that if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C, a form of transitive inference that requires sophisticated logical processing. The flexibility and speed with which sea lions learn new rules suggests they possess genuine reasoning abilities rather than just powerful associative memory. Sea lion cognition research has implications for understanding how marine mammals process information in complex and unpredictable ocean environments. These findings add sea lions to the growing list of animals demonstrating abstract reasoning capabilities. Cats use specialized purring to influence human behavior. Domestic cats produce a distinctive type of purring when soliciting food from their owners that contains acoustic elements resembling the cry of a human infant, exploiting human caregiving responses to increase the effectiveness of their requests. This solicitation purr is perceived by humans as more urgent and less pleasant than normal contentment purring, even by people who do not own cats, suggesting that cats have evolved to tap into human sensory biases. Acoustic analysis confirms that the solicitation purr contains higher frequency elements embedded within the familiar purring sound. Cats learn to use this modified purr through experience with their owners, tailoring their vocalizations to those that produce the best results. The phenomenon demonstrates how domesticated animals can evolve communication strategies specifically adapted to influencing human behavior. The cat's manipulation of human caregiving instincts represents a small-scale example of the broader coevolution between humans and companion animals during domestication. These specialized purrs reveal the sophisticated social intelligence that allows cats to navigate their relationships with their human caretakers. Spiders appear to count steps when reconstructing webs. Research on the cognitive abilities of spiders has suggested that web construction involves counting or measuring processes, as spiders adjust their behavior based on the number of radial threads already placed and the distances between spiral elements. When experimenters remove portions of partially constructed webs, spiders adjust their subsequent construction in ways that account for what remains, suggesting they track construction progress in some manner. The precision with which spiders position successive spiral threads suggests measurement or counting of intervening steps. The behavior appears to be robust against disruption, as spiders resume with appropriate adjustments after interference. While it remains unclear whether spiders possess true numerical cognition or rely on simpler mechanisms that achieve similar results, their construction behavior clearly involves more sophisticated processing than simple pre-programmed sequences. The spider's tiny brain, containing only a few 100,000 neurons, can produce construction behavior that appears purposeful and adaptive. Spider web construction has become a model system for studying how simple neural architectures can generate complex, seemingly intelligent behavior. Capuchin monkeys recognize and reject unfair treatment. Experiments with capuchin monkeys have revealed a sense of fairness, as monkeys who observe companions receiving better rewards for the same task often refuse to continue participating, even when this means foregoing rewards entirely. In the original studies, monkeys happily worked for cucumber slices until they observed their neighbors receiving preferred grapes for identical effort. At this point, many monkeys rejected the cucumber and stopped cooperating, sometimes throwing the unequal reward back at the experimenter. This inequity aversion appears to be specifically triggered by social comparison, as monkeys do not object to cucumber when working alongside an empty cage. The response is stronger when monkeys see themselves disadvantaged than when they see themselves advantaged, suggesting that self-interest remains important in these calculations. Similar inequity aversion has been found in other primates, dogs, and corvid birds, suggesting this may be a common feature of highly social species where cooperation requires mechanisms to prevent exploitation. The Capuchin fairness research has implications for understanding the evolutionary origins of human moral intuitions about equality and justice. Elephants use branches as tools to scratch difficult spots. Wild elephants have been observed using tree branches as scratching tools, reaching back to scratch parts of their bodies they cannot access with their trunks or against trees. This behavior requires selecting an appropriately sized and shaped branch, grasping it with the trunk, and manipulating it to reach the target area on the body. Elephants have also been documented using branches as fly swatters, holding leafy branches to fan flies away from their bodies. Beyond scratching tools, elephants use modified branches to reach food, dropping branches into water to test depth before crossing, and plugging water sources to reduce evaporation and preserve drinking water. Some of these tool behaviors appear to be innovations that spread through social groups, while others may be more widely distributed. The presence of tool use in elephants complements other evidence of their cognitive sophistication, including mirror self-recognition, empathic behavior, and apparent understanding of cooperation. Tool use adds to the picture of elephants as one of the most cognitively complex non-human species, with abilities that parallel those seen in great apes. Dolphins remember voices of companions after many years. The long-term memory of dolphins for the voices of former companions spans decades, with dolphins showing recognition responses to the signature whistles of individuals they have not encountered for more than 20 years. This finding suggests that dolphins retain acoustic memories of important social partners for periods comparable to their natural lifespans. In experiments, dolphins were played recordings of signature whistles from various individuals, and their responses were measured. Dolphins showed significantly longer attention and response behaviors when hearing whistles of long-lost former companions compared to whistles of strangers. The strength of the memory did not appear to diminish substantially over time intervals up to several decades. This capacity for lasting voice memory likely supports the fluid social structure of dolphin societies, where individuals may associate closely for periods and then separate, potentially reuniting after extended intervals. The ability to recognize former associates by voice alone would facilitate appropriate social behavior during such reunions. Dolphin memory for voices adds to evidence of sophisticated social cognition in these marine mammals. Whales may experience emotions resembling grief. Observations of whale behavior around deceased individuals suggest that these marine mammals experience emotional responses to death that parallel aspects of human grief. Mothers who have lost calves sometimes carry the dead body at the surface for days or weeks, keeping the remains at the surface despite the considerable physical effort required. During these carrying episodes, the bereaved mother typically does not eat and may travel slowly or remain in a limited area. Other pod members sometimes remain with grieving individuals, providing what appears to be social support during periods of loss. Similar behavior has been documented in orcas, pilot whales, and several other species, suggesting that mourning responses may be common among cetaceans. Researchers interpret these behaviors cautiously, acknowledging that we cannot directly access whale emotions, but note the parallels with mammalian grief responses. The extended mother-calf bonds in whales and the social nature of their lives create the conditions under which grief-like responses might evolve. Whether or not whales experience grief subjectively as humans do, their behavior demonstrates deep attachment to social partners. Ravens hold grudges against those who treated them unfairly. Research on raven social cognition has demonstrated that these birds track the behavior of individuals over time and adjust their responses based on past treatment, showing more reluctance to cooperate with partners who previously cheated or acted unfairly. In experimental settings, ravens learn to distinguish between human experimenters who dealt fairly and those who kept rewards for themselves, subsequently avoiding or refusing to cooperate with cheaters. This discrimination persisted over extended periods, suggesting that ravens form lasting impressions of individual partners and their trustworthiness. Similar selectivity in cooperation has been observed in wild ravens choosing whom to invite to share food discoveries. The capacity to track reputations and respond accordingly requires sophisticated social memory and represents an important mechanism for maintaining cooperation in social groups. Ravens who can remember who cheated and who dealt fairly are better positioned to benefit from cooperation while avoiding exploitation. This social accounting likely contributes to the complex social dynamics observed in raven societies. The raven's ability to hold grudges demonstrates individual recognition, memory across time, and flexible social behavior. Octopuses can navigate mazes after only a few attempts. The learning abilities of octopuses extend to rapid acquisition of spatial information, as these intelligent mollusks can learn to navigate mazes efficiently after only a handful of attempts. In laboratory tests, octopuses shown a maze leading to food initially explore extensively but quickly learn the correct path, eventually traveling directly to the goal without errors. The speed and flexibility of this spatial learning suggests that octopuses build mental representations of space rather than simply following learned sequences of turns. Octopuses can also learn to navigate through transparent mazes where they can see the goal throughout, demonstrating that they understand the relationship between routes and destinations. Their remarkable problem-solving abilities extend beyond mazes to include opening jars, escaping from tanks, and manipulating novel objects in their environment. The octopus brain is organized radically differently from vertebrate brains, with most neurons distributed through the arms, yet it supports sophisticated cognitive abilities. Understanding how octopuses achieve intelligent behavior with such different neural architecture may reveal fundamental principles about how minds can arise. Wolves understand fairness when sharing food. Studies comparing wolves and dogs have revealed that wolves show strong sensitivity to unequal treatment, refusing to cooperate when they observe that a partner receives better rewards for the same effort. This inequity aversion appears even stronger in wolves than in domestic dogs, possibly reflecting the importance of fair cooperation in wild pack life, where individuals depend on each other for hunting success. Wolves will stop pressing a lever to obtain rewards when they see a partner receiving superior rewards for pressing the same lever. The refusal to accept unequal treatment appears to be specifically social rather than reflecting simple frustration, as wolves do not respond the same way when unfavorable reward changes occur without a social comparison. The presence of fairness sensitivity in wolves suggests that human concerns with justice and equality may have deep evolutionary roots, extending back to the common ancestors of canids and primates. Understanding fairness in wolves also illuminates the evolutionary history of the dog-human relationship, showing what psychological capacities dogs brought with them into domestication. Some birds craft hooked tools to extract hidden insects. The New Caledonian crow has become one of the most studied examples of tool manufacture in the animal kingdom, with wild populations routinely crafting hooks from twigs and leaves to extract insect larvae from tree holes that their beaks cannot reach. The crows select plant materials with appropriate properties and modify them through breaking, trimming, and bending to create functional hooked probes. The construction process is not random, but follows predictable patterns that result in consistently effective tools. Individual crows develop preferences for particular tool designs and refine their technique through practice. Young crows learn tool-making skills from observing adults, with juveniles spending extended periods practicing before achieving adult proficiency. The cultural transmission of tool designs has created local traditions that differ between crow populations on different parts of the island. This tool manufacture involves foresight about how modifications will affect function, demonstrating understanding of cause and effect relationships. New Caledonian crow tool use provides one of the clearest examples of how intelligence can evolve to meet the specific ecological challenges a species faces. Orangutans create musical sounds using leaves. Orangutans in the rainforests of Borneo and Sumatra have been observed producing call modifications using leaves held to their lips, creating distinctive sounds that may serve communicative functions. By holding a leaf against their mouth while calling, orangutans alter the acoustic properties of their vocalizations in ways that appear intentional. This behavior is not uniformly distributed, but varies between populations, suggesting cultural origins. The leaf-modified calls carry different acoustic signatures that may convey additional information to listeners or may help sounds travel further through dense forest environments. Beyond acoustic modification, orangutans use leaves for multiple purposes, including as moisture-absorbing napkins, as protective coverings against rain and sun, and as cushioning for sleeping platforms. The range of leaf-related behaviors in orangutans demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how materials can be used to achieve goals. The presence of musical-like sound production adds to evidence of cultural complexity in orangutans. These forest dwellers display cognitive flexibility and cultural learning that parallels findings from other great apes. Dolphins can recognize grammar-like patterns in communication. Research with trained dolphins has demonstrated that these marine mammals can understand communications that follow simple grammar rules, responding appropriately to novel sentences they have never heard before by applying learned syntactic principles. In these studies, dolphins learned an artificial language of gestures or sounds where word order mattered for meaning. Sentences like "bring the ball to the hoop" meant something different from "bring the hoop to the ball," and dolphins reliably distinguished between them. More impressively, dolphins could apply these rules to novel combinations of familiar words, demonstrating that they had extracted the underlying grammatical structure rather than simply memorizing specific commands. While this artificial language remains simpler than human language, it demonstrates that dolphins possess cognitive machinery capable of processing structured communications. The presence of grammar processing ability in dolphins suggests that this cognitive capacity may not be unique to humans, but may arise in species with sufficient social and communicative demands. Dolphin language cognition research continues to illuminate both the unique features of human language and the capabilities we share with other intelligent species. Bats identify individual voices within crowded colonies. In the acoustic chaos of bat colonies containing thousands of individuals, mothers and pups can locate each other through voice recognition, identifying specific individuals from the cacophony of calls that fill the cave. Research has confirmed that bat calls contain individual signatures that remain consistent over time and can be learned by colony members. When mother bats return from foraging, they and their pups exchange calls that allow mother offspring pairs to reunite despite the presence of thousands of other bats. The acoustic discrimination required is remarkable given the density and similarity of calls in active colonies. Some bat species can also identify other colony members individually, tracking social relationships and avoiding conflicts through recognition of familiar versus unfamiliar voices. This vocal individual recognition likely supports the complex social interactions observed in many bat species, including information sharing about food sources and roost sites. The cognitive demands of navigating both physical space through echolocation and social space through voice recognition make bats important subjects for understanding how brains process complex acoustic information. Chimpanzees console each other after conflicts. Following aggressive encounters between group members, chimpanzees display clear consolation behaviors where bystanders approach victims of aggression and provide comfort through physical contact, such as embracing, grooming, and gentle touching. These consolation behaviors reduce stress in the victim as measured by behavioral indicators and stress hormone levels. Consolation is more commonly directed toward individuals with whom the consoler has close relationships, suggesting that the behavior arises from empathic concern for valued social partners. The pattern of consolation in chimpanzees closely resembles human comforting behavior, with individuals who care about each other providing support during times of distress. Research has shown that victims who receive consolation recover from the stress of conflict more quickly than those who do not, demonstrating the functional value of this behavior. Consolation differs from reconciliation, which involves interactions between the former opponents themselves, in that it involves third parties providing comfort. The presence of consolation behavior in chimpanzees suggests that empathic responses to others' distress may have evolved before the human lineage diverged from other great apes. Some birds imagine future scenarios to plan their actions. Research on corvids has provided evidence that these birds can mentally simulate future events and take actions in the present based on anticipated future needs, a capacity called mental time travel that was once considered uniquely human. In controlled experiments, corvids chose tools not for immediate use, but for use in a task that would occur hours later in a different location, demonstrating both anticipation of future needs and self-control to save tools rather than abandoning them. Similar future-oriented behavior has been demonstrated in food caching, where birds cache food in locations where they anticipate being hungry rather than where they are currently located. The birds' choices took into account specific future scenarios, including which room they would be in and what tools or food would be available there. This capacity for future planning requires representing possible future states of the world, recognizing one's own likely future needs, and selecting actions that address those anticipated needs. The presence of mental time travel in birds suggests that this cognitive ability evolved independently in the bird and mammalian lineages. Dolphins synchronize their heartbeats when swimming together. Recent research using non-invasive monitoring devices has revealed that dolphins swimming in close proximity synchronize their heartbeats, showing coordinated physiological responses that may underlie their remarkable behavioral coordination. This cardiac synchrony appears most strongly between individuals with close social bonds and during episodes of coordinated swimming. The mechanism for this synchronization is not fully understood, but may involve responses to shared sounds, movements, or the echolocation signals that dolphins use to perceive their environment. Similar physiological synchrony has been observed in humans during emotional connection and in some other social animals, suggesting that shared bodily states may be a fundamental feature of social bonding. The heart rate synchrony in dolphins may facilitate the precise behavioral coordination these animals display during activities like cooperative hunting and coordinated breathing during surfacing. Understanding dolphins' physiological responses to each other may provide insights into their emotional experiences during social interactions. This finding adds to evidence that dolphins' social bonds involve deep connection extending to the level of involuntary bodily responses. Bees can experience states resembling optimism and pessimism. Research on honeybee cognition has demonstrated that bees' responses to ambiguous stimuli depend on their recent experiences, with bees that have received positive experiences responding more optimistically than those that have experienced stress or disappointment. In these experiments, bees were trained that one odor predicted reward and another predicted no reward, then tested with an ambiguous odor intermediate between the two. Bees that had recently experienced positive events were more likely to investigate the ambiguous odor as if expecting reward, while stressed bees were more likely to avoid it. This pattern resembles what psychologists call cognitive bias in humans, where emotional states affect interpretation of ambiguous information. The finding suggests that bees possess internal states that color their perception and decision-making in ways analogous to emotions. While researchers remain cautious about claiming that bees experience feelings as humans do, this evidence demonstrates that bee behavior cannot be explained as simple reflex responses. The discovery of emotion-like states in insects has implications for understanding the evolutionary origins of feelings and their presence across the animal kingdom. Crows understand how water displacement works. In a test inspired by one of Aesop's fables, crows demonstrated understanding of water displacement by dropping stones into tubes of water to raise the water level high enough to reach a floating treat. The crows preferentially selected larger stones over smaller ones and solid stones over hollow ones, showing understanding that these properties affected how effectively the objects raised the water level. When given the choice between tubes containing water and tubes containing sand, crows selected the water tube, demonstrating understanding that stones would not effectively raise the level of sand. The crows' behavior suggested genuine understanding of the physics involved rather than trial-and-error learning, as they made correct choices even on first attempts with novel arrangements. This water displacement understanding in crows rivals that's seen in young children performing similar tasks. The finding adds to accumulating evidence that corvids possess causal reasoning abilities that allow them to understand and predict how their actions will affect the physical world. Crows demonstrate that sophisticated physical reasoning can evolve in animals with very different brain organization than mammals. Dogs may dream about their owners. Research on sleep in dogs has confirmed that they experience sleep stages similar to those of humans, including rapid eye movement sleep, during which dreams are most likely to occur. During these dream periods, dogs often display behaviors such as twitching, barking quietly, and making running movements that suggest they are mentally experiencing activities from their waking lives. The areas of the brain that are active during dog sleep parallel those that are active during human dreaming, providing neurological evidence for dreamlike experiences. While we cannot directly access the content of dog dreams, researchers suggest that dogs probably dream about the activities and relationships that matter most to them during waking life, which would certainly include their owners. Some researchers have proposed that the dream behaviors displayed by sleeping dogs provide clues about dream content, with movements and sounds reflecting the type of imagined activity. The presence of dreaming in dogs connects to their sophisticated memory systems and emotional lives. Whatever dogs experience during sleep, the evidence suggests that their minds remain active, processing, and perhaps replaying the events of their days. Elephants cooperate to rescue calves in danger. The coordinated rescue behavior of elephants when young calves are threatened demonstrates sophisticated cooperation and understanding of both the danger and the actions needed to address it. When calves become trapped in mud, fall into holes, or face predators, adult elephants rapidly coordinate to assist, with different individuals taking complementary roles such as pulling the calf, pushing from behind, protecting against threats, and clearing obstacles. These rescue efforts can persist for extended periods despite considerable effort and some risk to the adult rescuers. The coordination required suggests that elephants understand both what the calf needs and how their individual actions can contribute to the rescue effort. Similar cooperative responses occur when adult elephants are in distress, suggesting that mutual aid is a general feature of elephant social life. The willingness to assist relatives and close associates, even at cost to themselves, demonstrates altruistic motivation in elephants. Elephant rescue behavior provides dramatic evidence for the claim that these animals possess empathy, cooperation, and the cognitive abilities needed to translate caring into effective action. Pigs can learn to play simple video games. Research on pig cognition has demonstrated that pigs can learn to manipulate joysticks with their snouts to control cursors on video screens, moving the cursors to hit targets in exchange for food rewards. The pigs learn the relationship between their joystick movements and the cursor movements on screen, demonstrating understanding of the connection between their actions and the visual consequences. This ability requires not only motor learning, but also comprehension that the cursor represents something that can be controlled and that hitting targets leads to rewards. Some pigs progress to more complex games requiring timing, tracking, and sequential actions. The success of pigs at video game tasks adds to evidence that these animals possess sophisticated cognitive abilities, including spatial reasoning, cause-effect understanding, and the capacity to learn complex arbitrary associations. Pig intelligence has often been compared favorably to that of dogs and primates, and video game research provides a standardized way to assess cognitive abilities across species. The ability to play video games demonstrates that pig minds can adapt to completely novel challenges far outside their evolutionary history. Ravens engage in play purely for enjoyment. Field observations and captive studies have documented extensive play behavior in ravens, including activities such as sliding down snow-covered surfaces, hanging upside down from branches, and playing with objects in ways that appear to serve no practical function beyond entertainment. Ravens have been observed repeatedly flying to the top of snow-covered roofs or hillsides and sliding down, immediately returning to repeat the experience. Young ravens spend considerable time in social play with each other, chasing, wrestling, and performing aerial acrobatics together. Play behavior in ravens and other intelligent animals often correlates with cognitive complexity, suggesting that play may serve important functions in developing and maintaining cognitive flexibility. While some play may practice skills that will be useful later in life, much raven play appears difficult to explain as anything other than spontaneous enjoyment. The presence of play for its own sake suggests that ravens experience positive emotional states during these activities. Play behavior demonstrates that intelligence in corvids extends beyond solving practical problems to include seeking out pleasurable experiences. Dolphins create bubble rings as a form of playful art. Dolphins in captivity and occasionally in the wild create perfect rings of air bubbles by releasing air from their blowholes in controlled bursts, then manipulating these rings with their rostrums, spinning them, nudging them, and sometimes creating smaller rings from larger ones. The creation of stable, rotating bubble rings requires precise control over air release and movement, suggesting that dolphins develop considerable skill through practice. Dolphins appear to derive enjoyment from this activity, repeatedly creating and playing with bubble rings during periods of apparent leisure. Some individuals invent novel techniques for manipulating their bubble creations, suggesting creative exploration of what is possible. The behavior spreads through social groups as dolphins observe and begin to imitate successful bubble makers. Bubble ring play has been interpreted as evidence for aesthetic appreciation in dolphins, as the rings serve no practical purpose and appear to be valued for their own sake. This playful creativity adds to evidence that dolphins possess rich inner lives that extend beyond simple survival behaviors into realms of recreation and possibly art. Chimpanzees use medicinal plants to treat illness. Field observations across Africa have documented chimpanzees seeking out and consuming specific plants when they appear to be ill, plants that have little nutritional value but contain compounds with medicinal properties. Chimpanzees with intestinal parasite infections have been observed swallowing rough leaves whole, a behavior that helps expel parasites through mechanical action. Other plant medicines appear to be valued for their chemical properties, with chimpanzees chewing bitter bark or swallowing plant parts containing antiparasitic or antibacterial compounds. The selectivity of plant consumption, its correlation with apparent illness, and its effectiveness suggest that chimpanzees possess knowledge about the healing properties of their forest pharmacies. Young chimpanzees observe their mothers using plant medicines and may learn which species to seek when ill. The practice varies between communities, with different populations maintaining distinct medicinal traditions. Chimpanzee self-medication provides evidence for sophisticated understanding of the relationship between consuming particular plants and feeling better. The study of great ape traditional medicine has even led to the discovery of compounds potentially useful for human medicine. Whales adjust their songs when ocean noise increases. As human-generated noise from shipping, sonar, and industrial activities has increased in the world's oceans, whale populations have demonstrated remarkable vocal plasticity by modifying their songs to maintain communication effectiveness. Some whale populations have shifted the frequencies of their calls to reduce overlap with the low-frequency drone of ship engines. Others have increased the amplitude of their calls, essentially shouting to be heard over the noise. The timing of calls has also changed in some populations, with whales concentrating vocal activity during quieter periods. These adjustments demonstrate that whale communication is not rigidly fixed, but can adapt to environmental changes. However, researchers are concerned that the energetic costs of louder calling and the limitations on when and how whales can communicate may have negative consequences for populations. The ability of whales to adjust their songs provides hope that these species can partially compensate for human impacts on their acoustic environment. Whale vocal flexibility demonstrates both the cognitive sophistication of these animals and their sensitivity to environmental conditions. Octopuses learn to recognize specific humans who feed them. Octopuses kept in research facilities and aquariums have demonstrated the ability to distinguish between individual human caretakers, responding differently to people based on their past interactions. Octopuses show approach behavior and apparent recognition toward keepers who regularly feed them, while displaying avoidance or even squirting water at unfamiliar people or those who have caused them discomfort. The discrimination persists across changes in the human's clothing, suggesting that octopuses are recognizing individuals based on facial or body features rather than superficial cues. This capacity for individual recognition is remarkable given that octopuses are solitary animals in the wild with little evolutionary pressure to distinguish individuals of any species. Researchers have documented cases where octopuses treated new staff members with suspicion until positive interactions accumulated. The ability to form relationships with individual humans based on past experience demonstrates both memory and the capacity to categorize individuals based on behavioral history. Octopus responses to different people provide a window into their cognitive and possibly emotional lives. Bees can be trained to detect explosives and diseases. The extraordinary olfactory abilities of honeybees have been harnessed by researchers who have trained them to detect specific chemical signatures associated with explosives, drugs, and even certain diseases. Bees can learn to associate particular odors with sugar rewards through simple conditioning, and their sensitivity to airborne molecules rivals or exceeds that of trained dogs. Trained bees have successfully detected compounds associated with explosive materials, illicit drugs, and cancerous tissue. The potential applications include security screening, medical diagnostics, and environmental monitoring. Bees offer advantages over other detection systems because they are inexpensive, quick to train, and capable of detecting extremely low concentrations of target compounds. Various deployment methods have been developed, including watching for bees' conditioned responses to target odors. While practical implementation faces challenges, the underlying capability of bees to learn and generalize odor discriminations is well established. Bee detection research demonstrates how the sensory abilities and learning capacity of insects can be applied to address human needs. Wolves use eye contact to coordinate group movements. Research on wolf pack behavior has revealed that eye contact plays a crucial role in coordinating the activities of pack members, with wolves monitoring each other's gaze direction to synchronize movements during travel, hunting, and social interactions. Before group departures, pack members often engage in mutual gaze that appears to establish readiness and direction of intended movement. Dominant wolves can direct the attention of subordinates through gaze, with subordinates following the gaze direction to identify what the dominant is attending to. This gaze following allows information to spread quickly through the pack without vocal signaling that might alert prey. The importance of eye contact in wolf communication may have facilitated the domestication of dogs, as wolves already possessed the neural machinery for monitoring and responding to gaze. Understanding gaze communication in wolves illuminates both their cognitive abilities and the evolutionary history of human canine communication. The sophisticated use of eye contact demonstrates that wolf packs function as coordinated units linked by continuous monitoring of each other's attention and intentions. Parrots understand the concept of taking turns. Research with parrots has demonstrated that these intelligent birds can learn the social convention of turn-taking in games and interactions, waiting for their partner to complete an action before taking their own turn. In experimental settings, parrots learn to alternate with human or other parrot partners in tasks where taking turns was required for success. The parrots showed frustration when partners failed to respect turn-taking conventions and patience when partners were reliably reciprocal. Turn-taking ability suggests understanding that interaction involves sequences of complementary actions by different parties. This capacity relates to the ability to engage in coordinated vocal exchanges, where partners must listen and respond appropriately. The presence of turn-taking in parrot cognition may connect to the elaborate vocal learning and complex social interactions that characterize parrot life in the wild. Understanding turn-taking requires tracking not just one's own actions, but also the actions and probable next moves of others. Parrot turn-taking adds to evidence that these birds possess sophisticated social cognition capable of supporting complex communicative interactions. Dolphins develop cultural differences between pods. Different dolphin populations around the world exhibit distinct behavioral repertoires that are transmitted across generations through social learning, creating cultural differences that distinguish one community from another even when they share the same waters. These differences include hunting techniques, social conventions, play behaviors, and communication patterns. The sponge tool use tradition in some Australian dolphins, for example, is maintained within specific family lines, while other dolphins in the same region never adopt the practice. Cultural differences between dolphin communities can arise from isolated innovations that spread within one group, but not between groups. Once established, cultural traditions can persist for multiple generations, creating distinctive community identities. The presence of culture in dolphins has implications for conservation, as the loss of a dolphin community may mean the loss of unique cultural knowledge that cannot be recreated. Dolphin culture demonstrates that the capacity for cultural accumulation and transmission is not unique to humans, but has evolved in at least one other highly social, long-lived species. Crows grasp cause and effect in problem-solving. Experiments with crows have demonstrated sophisticated causal reasoning, with these birds inferring cause and effect relationships even when the mechanisms involved are not directly visible. In one series of experiments, crows learned that a hidden human caused a stick to move, but that a stick moving without the presence of a human indicated something different and potentially more dangerous. The crows adjusted their behavior based on what they could infer about the hidden causes of observed effects. In other experiments, crows demonstrated understanding of how physical mechanisms work, correctly predicting that pulling one end of a string would cause movement at the other end, even in novel configurations. This causal understanding extends to tool use, where crows select and manufacture tools with properties appropriate for specific tasks. The ability to understand causation allows crows to solve problems they have never encountered before by reasoning about how their actions will affect outcomes. Crow causal reasoning demonstrates that sophisticated thinking about the physical world can arise in brains very different from those of primates. Elephants understand human pointing gestures without training. Unlike most animals who do not naturally follow human pointing gestures, elephants demonstrate spontaneous understanding of pointing, looking in the direction indicated without any specific training. This capacity suggests that elephants possess an innate or easily learned understanding that pointing gestures indicate direction or location. Researchers discovered this ability when working with captive elephants who immediately followed pointing cues to locate hidden food. The elephant's performance was as good as that of domestic dogs, who have been selected over thousands of years for sensitivity to human communication. The elephant's natural understanding of pointing suggests that they must attend to and interpret the gestures of other elephants in the wild. African elephants point with their trunks toward directions of interest, such as water sources or potential threats, and the ability to follow such gestures may be fundamental to elephant communication. The spontaneous understanding of human pointing by elephants provides a bridge for communication between our species. Dogs can sense small quantities and choose larger portions. Research on numerical cognition in dogs has demonstrated that they can distinguish between different quantities and reliably choose the larger of two food portions when given the choice. Dogs' numerical discrimination follows patterns similar to those seen in humans, with performance declining as the ratio between quantities becomes more similar. When choosing between amounts that differ substantially, dogs are highly accurate, but as amounts become closer together, errors increase. Dogs can make these comparisons rapidly, suggesting that they possess an approximate number system that allows quick assessment of quantity without explicit counting. The ability to assess quantities has obvious survival value, as animals who can identify larger food sources or larger threat groups can make better decisions. Beyond simple magnitude assessment, some research suggests dogs can be trained to perform more precise numerical discriminations. Numerical cognition in dogs demonstrates that these animals possess basic mathematical awareness despite lacking language or formal training. The quantity sense of dogs likely contributes to their ability to navigate a complex world. Chimpanzees remember the taste of specific fruits for years. The long-term memory of chimpanzees for food sources extends to remembering not just the locations of fruiting trees, but the specific taste, quality, and ripening patterns of individual trees across periods spanning many years. Field research has demonstrated that chimpanzees navigate their forest ranges with detailed knowledge of thousands of food trees, anticipating when each will bear fruit and returning at appropriate times. When trees that have not fruited for several years finally produce again, chimpanzees arrive to harvest without having checked recently, suggesting memory of long-term patterns. The chimpanzee's food memory appears to include qualitative information about which trees produce the best-tasting fruit, as individuals show preferences for specific trees over others of the same species. Young chimpanzees learn the locations and characteristics of food sources from their mothers during years of close association. This encyclopedic knowledge of the forest food supply allows chimpanzees to forage efficiently in environments where food is scattered and seasonally variable. Memory for food quality and location demonstrates how cognitive abilities serve survival in complex natural environments. Ravens comfort distressed companions. Observational studies of raven social behavior have documented consolation behavior, where bystanders approach ravens who have just been victims of aggressive encounters and provide comforting contact through sitting near, preening, and bill touches. The consolation is directed preferentially toward individuals with whom the consoler has close social bonds, suggesting empathic concern rather than indiscriminate sociality. Ravens who receive consolation after conflicts show reduced stress behaviors compared to those who do not receive such social support. The pattern of consolation closely parallels that seen in great apes and other highly social mammals, suggesting that similar social-emotional processes may underlie the behavior in very different species. Consolation requires that the consoler recognize and respond to the distress of another individual, capacities that were once thought to be uniquely mammalian. The presence of consolation behavior in ravens extends our understanding of empathy and social support into the avian world. Raven social cognition appears remarkably sophisticated, supporting complex relationships that include both competitive and caring elements. Dolphins perceive their surroundings through echolocation. Dolphins navigate and hunt in their underwater environment primarily through echolocation, producing high-frequency clicks and interpreting the returning echoes to construct detailed mental images of their surroundings. The dolphin echolocation system is remarkably sophisticated, capable of detecting objects smaller than a centimeter at distances of many meters, distinguishing between materials based on their acoustic properties and tracking rapidly moving prey in 3 dimensions. The information dolphins extract from echoes includes the size, shape, distance, speed, and even internal structure of objects, as echolocation can image through fish bodies to detect swim bladders. Dolphins adjust their echolocation clicks based on what they are investigating, producing different sound patterns for searching versus examining objects in detail. The brain areas devoted to processing echolocation information are highly developed, allowing dolphins to construct coherent perceptions from rapid sequences of echoes. Some researchers suggest that dolphins can share echolocation information with each other, with one dolphin's clicks providing information that others can interpret. The echolocation perceptual world of dolphins represents a fundamentally different mode of experiencing reality. Octopuses taste the world through their skin. The remarkable sensory abilities of octopuses include the capacity to taste and smell through their skin, with chemoreceptors distributed across their arms, allowing them to taste anything they touch. Each of the hundreds of suckers on octopus arms contains thousands of chemoreceptors that provide detailed chemical information about contacted objects and surfaces. This distributed chemical sensing means that octopuses explore their world through touch and taste simultaneously, gaining information about food quality, predator presence, and environmental chemistry through direct contact. The nervous system running through octopus arms can process some of this chemical information locally, allowing the arms to respond to taste information semi-independently. The octopus sensory experience is therefore radically different from our own, with taste distributed across the body rather than concentrated in the mouth. This distributed sensory system connects to the distributed neural architecture of octopuses, where most neurons are located in the arms rather than the central brain. The octopus provides a powerful example of how intelligence and awareness can take forms very different from the centralized consciousness of vertebrates. Parrots offer comfort to distressed flock members. Observations of parrot social behavior in both wild and captive settings have documented affiliative care directed toward distressed individuals, with companions approaching, sitting near, and engaging in gentle contact with flock members showing signs of stress or distress. This comforting behavior appears to reduce signs of distress in the recipient, suggesting functional effectiveness. The response is more commonly directed toward closely bonded individuals, indicating that emotional connection influences the likelihood of offering comfort. Social comfort in parrots resembles consolation behavior documented in great apes, elephants, corvids, and other species with complex social cognition. The presence of comforting behavior suggests that parrots can detect distress in others and are motivated to address it through their presence and contact. Long-lived social parrots may benefit from relationships where distress is shared and partners provide mutual support. The emotional sophistication suggested by parrot comforting behavior adds to evidence from their linguistic abilities, problem-solving skills, and playful creativity. Parrots demonstrate that birds are capable of emotional responses and social relationships as sophisticated as those of mammals. Wolves show empathy through gentle physical contact. Research on wolf social behavior has documented extensive use of physical contact for social communication, including gentle touching behaviors that appear to serve consoling and bonding functions. Wolves who approach pack members in distress often make gentle physical contact, leaning against them, licking, or resting near them in ways that resemble comforting behavior. This physical closeness appears to reduce signs of stress in the recipient, suggesting a genuine soothing function. The pattern of wolf affiliative contact resembles that seen in dogs' interactions with their human companions, suggesting evolutionary continuity between wild and domestic canids. Wolves also use physical contact to maintain social bonds during calm periods, engaging in mutual grooming, resting in contact, and greeting with face-to-face touches. The importance of touch in wolf social life demonstrates that these predators maintain their pack bonds partly through gentle, caring interactions. Understanding wolf empathy provides insight into the social emotions that dogs brought into their partnership with humans. Chimpanzees use leaf sponges to drink water. Chimpanzees in multiple African populations have developed the technique of crumpling leaves and using them as sponges to soak up water from sources they cannot reach directly with their lips, demonstrating both tool use and cultural transmission. The behavior involves selecting appropriate leaves, chewing them to increase absorbency, dipping them in water, and then squeezing the water into the mouth. Different populations have developed variations on this technique, with some using moss rather than leaves and others modifying leaves in specific ways. The leaf sponge technique is not instinctive, but must be learned through observation, and juveniles spend considerable time watching and practicing before achieving proficiency. The behavior appears in populations where water sometimes collects in tree holes too deep to reach directly, suggesting that the technique arose to solve a specific ecological challenge. The presence of similar but distinct sponge-making traditions across Africa demonstrates how cultural solutions to problems can arise independently and spread through social learning. Leaf sponge use in chimpanzees represents one of the clearer examples of cultural tool traditions in our closest relatives. Elephants can distinguish between different human languages. Research has demonstrated that elephants can learn to distinguish between human groups based on language, age, and gender cues in voices, showing more defensive responses to voices that represent greater threats. In studies with African elephants, playback of human voices elicited stronger defensive responses when the speakers were from groups more likely to pose threats to elephants. Even more remarkably, elephants discriminated between male and female voices and between adult and child voices, responding more strongly to adult male voices that represent the greatest historical threat. These discriminations were based solely on vocal cues, as the elephants could not see the speakers. The ability to categorize humans based on voice characteristics demonstrates sophisticated auditory processing and learning based on experience. Elephants appear to maintain knowledge about which categories of humans are dangerous and use acoustic information to identify potential threats. This learned discrimination reflects the complex and often difficult history of elephant-human relationships. The ability to classify human voices adds to evidence for sophisticated cognitive processing in elephants. Bees adjust their dances when environmental conditions change. The waggle dance communication system of honeybees is not rigidly programmed, but shows flexibility in response to current conditions, with dancers adjusting their performance based on factors including prey quality, wind conditions, and colony needs. When food sources are of higher quality or the colony is in greater need, dances are more vigorous and extended, resulting in more recruits being sent to those sources. Bees modify the directional information in their dances to account for wind conditions that will affect the flight paths of recruits. When environmental conditions change rapidly, foragers update their dance information accordingly, preventing recruitment to depleted or dangerous locations. The flexibility of bee dance communication allows colonies to respond adaptively to changing conditions, redirecting foraging effort as opportunities arise and disappear. Individual bees must continuously sample both their own foraging experience and the dances of others to make effective decisions about where to forage. The dynamic adjustment of dance communication demonstrates that bee collective intelligence involves sophisticated information updating. Dolphins have rescued humans in danger at sea. Numerous documented accounts describe dolphins coming to the aid of humans in distress at sea, circling swimmers to ward off sharks, pushing unconscious swimmers toward shore, and supporting drowning people at the surface. While some of these accounts may involve coincidental behavior being interpreted as intentional rescue, the pattern of reports is consistent with dolphins recognizing human distress and responding helpfully. The supporting behavior shown towards struggling humans resembles the well-documented helping behavior dolphins show toward injured pod members, suggesting that dolphins may generalize their helping instincts across species. Scientists remain cautious about attributing human-like rescue motivations to dolphins, but acknowledge that the behavior appears consistent with intentional assistance. The willingness of dolphins to approach and assist struggling humans suggests some recognition of distress and motivation to help. These apparent rescue behaviors have contributed to the long history of positive human perceptions of dolphins. Whatever the precise motivation, dolphin rescue behavior demonstrates that these animals can respond to humans in need in ways that function as effective assistance. Crows invent new solutions without copying others. While many crow innovations spread through social learning as individuals copy successful strategies, research has also documented genuine invention, where individual crows develop novel solutions to problems they have never seen solved. In controlled experiments, crows have solved multi-step puzzles where they had to invent and coordinate a sequence of actions to reach a goal, without any opportunity to observe others performing the solution. The speed with which some individuals solve novel problems suggests insight rather than trial-and-error learning, as if the crow mentally simulates possible actions before selecting the correct approach. Individual variation in problem-solving success suggests that some crows are more inventive than others, paralleling individual differences in human creativity. Innovation ability may provide survival advantages in changing environments, where flexible problem solvers can adapt to novel challenges. The combination of individual invention and social learning allows crow populations to accumulate adaptive behaviors over time. Crow innovation demonstrates that genuine creativity can exist in animals with very different brain organization than humans. Whales coordinate hunts across vast distances using sound. The acoustic communication abilities of whales allow them to coordinate hunting activities across distances of many kilometers, synchronizing movements and sharing information about prey locations through sounds that travel through ocean water far more efficiently than through air. Humpback whales hunting herring use bubble net feeding techniques that require multiple individuals to coordinate their bubble production, swimming patterns, and final lunging attacks. The coordination is achieved through vocals that signal readiness and timing. Orcapods hunting marine mammals use sophisticated vocal coordination to drive prey toward waiting ambushers while maintaining underwater stealth. Sperm whale groups use codas that appear to coordinate group activities, including foraging. The ability to coordinate across distances where visual contact is impossible requires sophisticated communication abilities and shared understanding of what different calls mean. This acoustic coordination allows whales to exploit prey resources that would be difficult for solitary individuals to access. The cooperative hunting of whales demonstrates how communication capabilities can enable collective intelligence that exceeds what any individual could achieve alone. Octopuses play with objects for pure enjoyment. Captive octopuses have been observed engaging in play behavior with objects, manipulating items in repetitive, apparently enjoyable ways that serve no obvious survival function. Researchers have documented octopuses repeatedly releasing objects into water currents and then catching them again, bouncing toys off tank walls, and exploring novel objects with sustained interest. The play behavior occurs when octopuses are well-fed and not otherwise stressed, paralleling the conditions under which play emerges in other species. Individual octopuses show preferences for particular play objects and return to engaging with them repeatedly. The presence of play suggests that octopuses experience positive internal states during these activities. Play may serve functions including practicing hunting skills, exploring properties of objects, and perhaps simply enjoying themselves. The emergence of play in an animal so distantly related to vertebrates suggests that the capacity for enjoyable exploration may arise whenever nervous systems reach certain levels of complexity. Octopus play demonstrates that rich inner experience may exist in forms very different from what we find familiar. Dogs interpret human pointing better than wolves. Comparative research between dogs and wolves raised under similar conditions has demonstrated that dogs possess superior ability to follow human pointing gestures, even though wolves are not incapable of learning to follow points. Dogs show spontaneous understanding of pointing from early in life, looking in the direction indicated without specific training, while wolves require more extensive experience to achieve similar performance. The enhanced sensitivity to human gestures in dogs likely reflects selection during domestication for individuals who could understand and respond to human communication. This selection appears to have produced genetic changes that affect the development of social cognition in dogs. The dog's superior pointing ability compared to wolves illustrates how domestication can shape cognitive abilities relevant to interspecies communication. However, wolves do possess the basic cognitive machinery for understanding pointing, which dogs have simply enhanced and made more readily accessible. The comparison between dogs and wolves illuminates both the effects of domestication and the cognitive foundations that made dog domestication possible. Cuttlefish remember specific meals from days earlier. Research on cuttlefish memory has demonstrated that these intelligent mollusks can remember not just what they ate, but when and where they ate it, forming episodic-like memories that combine information about specific past events. Cuttlefish tracked which feeding locations had provided which types of food and how recently, adjusting their foraging to avoid recently depleted spots. This memory for what where, when represents a sophisticated form of cognition that was once thought to be limited to birds and mammals. The cuttlefish memory system appears to be flexible, updating as new feeding experiences occur and maintaining relevant information over periods of days. This memory ability would be valuable for a predator navigating complex marine environments where prey availability varies in time and space. The presence of episodic-like memory in cuttlefish extends our understanding of how such memory systems can evolve in very different nervous systems. Cuttlefish cognition research continues to reveal cognitive sophistication in this branch of the mollusk family tree. Ravens understand the concept of time passing. Experimental research has provided evidence that ravens possess some understanding of time intervals, anticipating future events and adjusting their behavior based on how long since past events occurred. Ravens showed understanding of temporal sequences in planning experiments, selecting tools not for immediate use, but for use in tasks that would occur at specific times later. Their caching behavior also reflects temporal awareness, as ravens adjust their food storage and retrieval based on when they last ate and when they will need food next. This temporal cognition allows ravens to coordinate their behavior with future needs rather than simply responding to current circumstances. While the nature of ravens' subjective experience of time remains unknown, their behavior demonstrates functional understanding of temporal relationships. Time perception in ravens likely supports their sophisticated foraging and social strategies, where timing matters for success. The presence of temporal reasoning in corvids adds another dimension to our understanding of bird cognition. Chimpanzees can predict what others are about to do. Research using eye-tracking technology has revealed that chimpanzees anticipate the actions of others, looking toward locations where they expect other individuals to reach or move before those actions occur. In experiments showing videos of social scenarios, chimpanzees looked ahead to where they apparently expected events to unfold, demonstrating prediction of others' likely behavior. This anticipatory looking suggests that chimpanzees build mental models of what others are likely to do based on visible goals and intentions. The ability to predict others' actions is a foundational social cognitive skill that supports everything from competition to cooperation. Chimpanzees who can anticipate what others will do can position themselves advantageously in social and foraging situations. This predictive social cognition connects to broader theory of mind abilities, where understanding others' mental states allows prediction of their behavior. The capacity for social prediction in chimpanzees likely supports their sophisticated social lives, where tracking and anticipating others' behavior has real consequences. Elephants develop distinct cultural behaviors across herds. Different elephant populations maintain distinct behavioral traditions that appear to be transmitted through social learning rather than genetic inheritance, creating cultural differences that distinguish one group from another. These differences include variations in breeding behaviors, foraging techniques, migration routes, and responses to threats. Young elephants learn these traditions through years of close association with their mothers and other herd members. The cultural knowledge held by older females appears particularly important, as matriarch elephants who have lived through droughts and other challenges hold knowledge essential for herd survival. When older elephants die, their accumulated cultural knowledge may be lost, with potentially serious consequences for the groups that depended on that knowledge. Conservation efforts increasingly recognize that protecting elephant culture may be as important as protecting individual elephants. Elephant cultural traditions demonstrate that human-like capacity for cumulative cultural knowledge is not unique to our species. The cultural complexity of elephants reflects their long lives, complex social structures, and exceptional cognitive abilities. Dolphins recognize when they need help and seek assistance. Observations of dolphin behavior have documented instances where dolphins apparently recognize when they cannot solve a problem alone and actively seek assistance from companions or even from humans. Dolphins entangled in fishing line or caught in nets have approached divers in apparent solicitation of help. The behavior suggests understanding that others can provide assistance and intentional communication of the need for help. In captive settings, dolphins learn quickly that humans can help them with various tasks and direct attention-getting behaviors toward humans when they encounter problems. The seeking of assistance requires understanding one's own limitations, recognizing that others have relevant capabilities, and communicating the need effectively. This capacity connects to the broader social intelligence of dolphins, who navigate complex social environments that require awareness of both their own abilities and those of others. The recognition that help is needed and the ability to seek it demonstrates sophisticated self-awareness and social understanding. Parrots mourn the loss of their companions. Observations of parrot responses to the death of flock mates or bonded human companions suggest that these birds experience grief, displaying behavioral changes that parallel signs of mourning in other species. Parrots who lose long-term companions often show reduced activity, changes in vocalization, decreased appetite, and apparent searching behavior. Some bereaved parrots sit silently in locations where they previously spent time with the lost companion. The intensity of response appears related to the closeness of the relationship, with stronger reactions following the loss of long-term mates or closely bonded individuals. Recovery from apparent grief can take extended periods, and some parrots never fully return to their previous levels of activity and social engagement. While we cannot know the subjective experience of grief in parrots, the behavioral evidence suggests emotional responses to loss that function similarly to grief in humans and other animals. Parrot mourning demonstrates the depth of attachment these long-lived social birds form to their companions. Whales recognize the voices of distant relatives. Research on whale communication has demonstrated that whales can identify specific individuals by their vocalizations, recognizing and responding to the calls of relatives and former associates even after extended separations. Orcas maintain distinct pod-specific dialects and can recognize calls from natal pods even after dispersing. Playback experiments have shown that whales respond differently to calls from familiar versus unfamiliar individuals, indicating individual recognition through voice alone. The capacity for voice recognition supports the complex social relationships that whales maintain over their long lives and across their vast ranges. Whales may encounter relatives or former associates after extended periods of absence and need to re-establish social relationships quickly. Voice recognition allows immediate identification of social category and individual identity. The persistence of voice memory over years or decades parallels the long-term social bonds that characterize whale societies. Voice recognition in whales demonstrates sophisticated auditory processing and social memory. Octopuses learn by watching others solve problems. Despite being largely solitary animals, octopuses have demonstrated the capacity for observational learning, acquiring new skills by watching other octopuses perform tasks they have never attempted themselves. In controlled experiments, observer octopuses watched trained demonstrators retrieve food from containers, then successfully open the same containers on their first attempts without trial and error learning. The observers were able to extract the relevant technique from watching and apply it to their own actions. This observational learning is particularly remarkable given that octopuses do not naturally have extensive social interactions that would select for such abilities. The presence of social learning capacity in solitary animals suggests that the cognitive architecture for learning by observation may arise as a byproduct of other cognitive abilities rather than specifically evolving for social transmission. Octopus observational learning adds to evidence that these animals possess general-purpose learning abilities that can be applied across different domains. The cognitive flexibility demonstrated by octopuses continues to challenge assumptions about the relationship between brain organization and intelligence. And now, the quiet wonders of animal minds begin to gently fade into the stillness of the night. You have wandered through over 100 peaceful truths about the inner lives of creatures great and small. From dogs who sense our emotions through scent to dolphins who call each other by name. From elephants who mourn their dead to crows who remember faces for years. From octopuses who dream in shifting colors to chimpanzees who pass their wisdom to the next generation. You have explored how animals solve problems, form lasting bonds, communicate across vast distances, and show compassion in times of distress. You have learned that beneath every instinct we observe, there are countless processes we may never fully understand, all working together in quiet harmony. You are connected to this story more deeply than you may realize. Right now, as you listen, your own mind is doing what minds have always done, processing the world, forming memories, feeling the gentle pull of rest. The same evolutionary forces that shaped the intelligence of dolphins and elephants also shaped your capacity for thought and feeling. If your eyes feel heavy now, let them close. Let the rhythm of your breath become steady, like the gentle pulse of awareness beneath instinct, like the quiet hum of a mind that is always learning, always feeling, always reaching out to connect. Tonight, as you rest, the minds of animals continue their quiet work across the world. Dolphins are singing in the darkness of the ocean. Elephants are gathered beneath the stars. Crows are settling into their roosts with memories of the day. And somewhere, an octopus is dreaming in colors we cannot imagine. You are a small, warm presence within this vast web of awareness, peacefully resting among the wonders. Sleep well, sweet dreams, and may you carry with you the quiet knowledge that you are never truly alone, for the minds of animals are always there, thinking, feeling, and experiencing the world in ways that connect all living things. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the mysteries of animal minds. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to Drowsy Discovery for more soothing explorations of how the world around us thinks and feels. There are more wonders waiting, more secrets hidden in the depths of instinct and the quiet corners of consciousness, more gentle truths to drift through on quiet evenings. Rest well, and may the gentle awareness of the living world keep you company through the night. This has been Drowsy Discovery. Good night.